In 1981, a Hollywood production crew walked into the corporate headquarters of the largest candy manufacturer on the planet with an offer that would cost almost nothing, but the executives inside that boardroom delivered an immediate, confident rejection. The movie was called E.T., The Extra-Terrestrial, directed by Steven Spielberg. The director needed an essential scene where a lonely 10-year-old boy leaves a trail of brightly colored candy pieces across the forest floor to lure a mysterious, friendly creature straight into his bedroom. Spielberg's top choice for that iconic trail of chocolate was M&Ms, the flagship brand owned by the ultra-secretive confectionery empire, Mars Inc. Mars held total dominance over the candy market. Yet their top executives took one look at the strange, wrinkled puppet in the production notes and decided the risk was unacceptable. They believed the alien was ugly, that would terrify children, and that associating their clean, family-friendly chocolate with a bizarre space monster would permanently damage their corporate reputation. So Mars walked away from the table. That single refusal set off one of the greatest commercial blunders and one of the most explosive competitive steals in modern business history. To understand why Mars made such a confident refusal, we have to look back at the candy industry in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Mars was an untouchable, ultra-secretive corporate juggernaut. From a moment Forrest Mars Sr. perfected the hard-shelled chocolate drop during the Spanish Civil War and supplied millions of packs to American soldiers in World War II, M&Ms had enjoyed legendary brand equity. Decades of clever marketing and ironclad distribution meant that Mars practically owned the checkout aisles of every supermarket and convenience store in America. Brands like M&Ms and Snickers generated massive, predictable profits year after year. Mars operated under extreme corporate paranoia and strict secrecy. They believed they were already at the absolute peak of global consumer consciousness. And because of that, they believed they did not need Hollywood. In those days, major corporations viewed cinema with deep skepticism. Product placement in mainstream Hollywood films was still an unproven, unpredictable gamble. Traditional consumer brands spent tens of millions of dollars on 30-second television commercials and glossy magazine advertisements, where every single word, camera angle, and lighting setup was under direct corporate control. Handing over their most prized intellectual property to a science fiction film director who was building a secret movie about a creature from outer space felt dangerous, unmeasured, and entirely unnecessary to the conservative leadership at Mars. They were convinced that Spielberg's movie would fail at the box office, scare toddlers, and taint the wholesome image of M&Ms forever. When Mars slammed the door, Spielberg and his production team were left stranded in pre-production. Filming was already scheduled to begin, and the pivotal emotional climax of the early first act required a specific kind of candy. It had to be small, round, brightly colored, and instantly recognizable when scattered on the ground under a flashlight beam. The production team could not use an unbranded, generic candy because audiences would not connect with it in the same authentic way. Desperate for an alternative partner who was willing to move fast, the studio reached out to Mars's fiercest and oldest rival, the Hershey Company. In the early 1980s, Hershey was in a very different position than Mars. While Hershey's traditional milk chocolate bars and chocolate kisses were American icons, the company was struggling to crack the hard-shelled candy market that Mars dominated with an iron fist. To fight back against M&Ms, Hershey had developed and launched a brand new candy in 1978, Reese's Pieces. The concept was brilliant on paper. Take the beloved peanut butter center from Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and coat it in a crunchy, colorful candy shell. But in the real world, the launch was stalling out. For nearly 4 years, Hershey poured millions of dollars into promoting Reese's Pieces, but consumer adoption was painfully slow. Retailers were reluctant to grant prime shelf space to a product that sat untouched while M&Ms flew off the racks. The candy was on the verge of commercial failure, and Hershey's top executives were actively debating whether they should cut their losses and discontinue the product entirely. When Universal Studios contacted Jack Dowd, the vice president of new product development at Hershey, the pitch sounded unconventional. Due to extreme Hollywood secrecy, Spielberg and Universal refused to share the completed script with Hershey. They wouldn't even let Hershey executives see full photographs of the alien character. All they told Jack Dowd was the bare-bones premise. A young boy in suburban California befriends a stranded extraterrestrial, and he uses candy to win the creature's trust. Universal wasn't asking Hershey for a direct multi-million-dollar product placement fee, but they demanded something equally substantial. If Spielberg placed Reese's Pieces prominently inside the movie, Hershey had to commit $1 million of its own advertising budget to promote E.T. across retail stores, point-of-sale displays, and national television networks. Inside Hershey's headquarters in Pennsylvania, the boardroom was divided. Spending $1 million on an unproven movie without even seeing a script was an enormous gamble for a struggling product. If the movie bombed, or if the alien scared audiences away, that advertising budget would be completely vaporized, and Reese's Pieces would be dead for good. Jack Dowd decided to trust his instincts. He recognized that conventional advertising was failing to move the needle against M&Ms, and that Hershey had nothing left to lose. Dowd signed the contract, greenlit the million-dollar marketing campaign, and authorized Hershey factories to print thousands of movie-themed retail displays. On June 11, 1982, E.T. The Extra-Terrestrial officially premiered in theaters across North America. The impact was immediate, deafening, and completely unprecedented. The movie was not just a box office success. It became the biggest cultural phenomenon of the decade, breaking box office records and capturing the hearts of children, teenagers, and adults alike. Audiences did not find the alien terrifying. They found him deeply sympathetic, charming, and lovable. And right at the center of the film's most memorable early scene was a little trail of orange, brown, and yellow candies shining brightly in the moonlight. Millions of moviegoers watched Elliot place the candies one by one, watching the alien extend his long finger, pick up the candy, and eat it with delight. It was an emotional masterclass in storytelling, and it was the single most effective product demonstration ever filmed. Within 48 hours of opening weekend, retail stores across the country were hit with an unprecedented tidal wave of demand. Children walked out of theaters and marched their parents directly into grocery stores, corner delis, and movie theater concession stands asking for one specific product, the orange box of candy that Edie ate. Supermarket shelves were emptied within days. Distributors ran completely out of stock. Hershey's central manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania was suddenly overwhelmed by orders from every major retail chain in the United States and Canada. The company had to cancel planned vacations, introduce emergency weekend operations, and run 24-hour shifts just to keep the production lines running continuously. Within 2 weeks of the film's release, sales of Reese's Pieces had doubled. Within 3 months, sales had exploded by an astonishing 300%. A candy brand that had been on the verge of being terminated by corporate accountants was suddenly generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue. Reese's Pieces was cemented as a permanent fixture in American pop culture and a dominant pillar of Hershey's bottom line. The seismic success of the partnership did something even larger. It invented the modern billion-dollar industry of Hollywood product placement. Prior to E.T., movie tie-ins were treated as afterthoughts. After E.T., corporate boardrooms across the world realized that when a product is naturally integrated into the plot of an emotional story, the return on investment obliterates traditional television commercial campaigns. Brands rushed to Hollywood, offering millions of dollars to place their cars, sodas, watches, and computers inside major cinematic releases. Behind the closed doors of Mars headquarters, the mood was funeral quiet. The executives who had dismissed Spielberg's script were forced to watch their greatest competitor reap the rewards of the biggest promotional vehicle in cinema history. Mars had not only missed out on hundreds of millions of dollars in free brand exposure, but they had also single-handedly allowed Hershey to build a direct rival to M&Ms that would compete with them on store shelf for the next 40 years. Mars had operated from a position of arrogant certainty, assuming that market leaders never need to take creative risks. Hershey had operated from a position of hunger and calculated boldness, recognizing that unconventional opportunities often hide behind unconventional ideas. The story of Mars, Hershey, and Steven Spielberg remains a legendary business lesson taught in boardrooms worldwide. When a brand becomes so protective of its past that it refuses to take calculated risks on the future, it doesn't protect its market share. It simply hands the future over to its competitors. If Mars had said yes to Steven Spielberg in 1981, would Reese's Pieces even exist in candy aisles today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden stories behind the biggest moves in business history.